Yes, people, what's happening? I hope you're all good. I haven't dropped some videos for a couple of days because I've been a bit busy. You know how it gets, life gets in the way sometimes, but we're back. And today I'm going to be looking at some recent footage that came out about Conor Benn calling out UFC fighters. And before I get into the video, I just want to make this point. Boxers always have something to say about MMA fighters. They're happy to fight MMA fighters where they feel comfortable in the boxing ring, but none of them will jump in the octagon. And to be honest, I think it's about time one of them does it, because I've come to the realization that a lot of boxers, they get in their feelings so much. And I think it's for the simple fact that MMA fighters can actually do what you guys do, which is box. They might not be able to box to the level that you guys can box, but guess what? They can box. And I think it actually infuriates them so much that they have to call out UFC fighters or MMA fighters. They're that insecure. Think about how insecure you would have to be to tell an MMA fighter, "Oh, come and fight me in boxing, but I won't come over to the octagon." And you know why that is? Because they can't kick and they can't grapple. Shout out to Alexander Usyk, who actually trains wrestling and grappling. But majority of them are just so in their feelings that for the fact that UFC or MMA fighters can actually box. They might not be able to box to the level of, other boxers, but the sport starts standing up and there is a lot of boxing involved. Whereas boxers we can do what you can do, which is essentially, I wouldn't say half of our sport, but let's call it half of our sport. You can only do half of our sport, which is boxing. So if you crossed over into the octagon, a lot of these would struggle. Whereas a lot of people are going to try and come for me in the comments, but this is the truth. A lot of MMA fighters could actually cross over to boxing, and look how many are doing it now and actually do well to a certain level. Whereas boxers, respectfully, I don't care how good your hands are, majority of boxers couldn't cross over to MMA. Because yes, in terms of the stand-up, in terms of the boxing, they would have an advantage. But the minute it goes to the ground, it's done. Or the minute they take a leg kick, it's done. But let's get into this video of Conor Benn. I'll be honest, guys, I don't really like Conor, man. He just talks a lot of shit, man. But yeah, let's get into this video.
UFC fighters want to come over to boxing. Dangerous game. Anyone wants to come over from the UFC, Ilia, Ilia. I've got these hands, brother. Whoever these.
Call me crazy, guys, yeah. But I'm not gonna lie, I think Ilia Topuria would do well against Conor Benn. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I saw a video the other day of Conor Benn and Troy Deeney fighting each other. I'll call it sparring, but I think Conor Benn did some SAS training. Troy Deeney was there and the guy made the two of them fight. And obviously Troy Deeney is the bigger man, but it was a good scrap. But I honestly do feel like Ilia Topuria would have a good chance against Conor Benn. Obviously, Conor Benn, like, looking at the two of them, as much as Ilia is a very, very good boxer, and that is probably one of his strong points, when you compare the two, Conor Benn is the better boxer. You can see with the head movement, the way they throw their punches and whatnot. But I do think Ilia Topuria would give Conor Benn a run for his money. I'm not going to lie to you guys. And I feel like, you see what people need to understand, yeah? Obviously, smaller weight classes is a bit different, yeah? Like, it's like when people try and compare Conor McGregor versus Mayweather with Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. It's not the same thing. A heavyweight will always have a chance. A heavyweight MMA fighter will always have a chance against a heavyweight boxer, because all they have to do is land. Whereas in the smaller weight classes, there's more technique and skill and all of these things that come into it. So I get why a lot of people would say, oh no, Ilia Topuria doesn't stand a chance. But listen, I think Ilia Topuria has had more difficult fights than Conor Benn. I think Conor Benn's most difficult fight was the Chris Eubank Jr. fight. I don't feel like Conor Benn's really been tested. So I do, honestly guys, you guys can call me delusional, you can say whatever you want about me, but I genuinely believe with the skills that Ilia Topuria possesses, the boxing skills that he possesses, I do think he would do very well in boxing against someone like Conor Benn, especially because the two of them are going to get in the pocket. And Ilia is not afraid to get in the pocket. And Ilia does his best work in the pocket. Cool, we know in the octagon he likes to back people up, but I did a little breakdown for Ilia Topuria about a year ago. And I said he does his best work in the pocket. He also likes to back people up against the cage. But we saw against Charles Oliveira, in the middle of the octagon, when they both got into the pocket, Ilia Topuria came out victorious. And I do feel like his placement and timing of shots would give Conor Benn a bit of trouble. And I'm not saying he would knock him out. It would be a scrap, but I do think maybe because of the rounds, how many rounds they would go, maybe, obviously I'd give Conor Benn an advantage in that sense. But I do think Ilia Topuria could give Conor Benn a run for his money. But I just think it's about time that boxers just stop talking about MMA fighters, because there's countless MMA fighters doing your sport, guys. I know everyone likes to say, boxing is the superior martial arts, it's more dangerous, this, that, and the other. I don't give a shit about that. I don't understand why boxers are so... I just feel like it's insecurities, because they're always talking about, how boxing is the superior sport, MMA is not that dangerous, MMA is this and that. But we do not talk about you guys. The only time we talk about you guys is when we're talking about crossing over, or an MMA fighter coming into boxing, actually coming to do your sport, you know. But you guys are too afraid to come into the octagon and if boxing is the superior sport, why are so many of you scared to come into the octagon and prove that? Because if boxing is the superior sport, you shouldn't be worried about grappling. You shouldn't be worried about wrestling. You shouldn't be worried about the Muay Thai, the kickboxing, all of that. You shouldn't be worried about that, because boxing is the superior sport, no? Make it make sense. I know a lot of people say, but the UFC wouldn't do that. Yes, we wouldn't fucking do. The UFC wouldn't fucking do that, because the UFC don't make gimmick fights. They don't waste time with like the Jake Paul and fucking Gervonta Davis fight. They don't waste time with gimmick fights. The only time they did that was Conor McGregor and Mayweather, but that made sense because of the amount of money it was bringing in, and it had never been done before at the time. So, you know, boxers, please stop talking about how your sport is the superior sport if you're not going to at least back it up in situations that doesn't favour you. Because the only time they try and back it up is when fighters that are fought in other martial arts come into boxing and fight you in the ring. Of course, respectfully, of course, majority of the time you're going to win, because it's in a sport that favours you. It's in a sport that you've been doing most of your life. So, you know, Conor Benn, to be honest, I can't lie. If Ilia can get that fight, I would like to see that fight. And to be honest, they could actually make the fight, because Conor Benn has fought at 154 pounds. Ilia Topuria now fights at 155 pounds. There's a 1 pound difference. So it can be done. And I hope later down the line we get this fight done. It's just, Ilia obviously is big in his respect, but I don't think Conor Benn is as big yet. I would argue that Ilia Topuria is a bigger star than Conor Benn. I know some people are going to come for me in the comments, but from what I've seen, I have no doubt Ilia Topuria is a bigger star than Conor Benn. So Conor Benn, you need to get, you know, the people on your side a bit more, because I'll be honest, a lot of people don't fuck with you. I don't fuck with you. But like and subscribe, guys. Comment below. It's Big Yams.